Okay, everybody, welcome to this special edition DVD of Purple Storm. My name is Bey Logan. I'm very happy to have with me Daniel Wu.
Hello, how's it going?
The star of the movie. And this is my favorite of the Media Asia films made that year. So it's great to be able to look back at it with some perspective, and I'm sure you feel the same way, Dan.
Yeah, it's been a while since I've checked this out.
And it's interesting to me because, I mean, looking at your career flight path, prior to this film, the parts you played in movies were like supporting or minor roles comparative to this. And this is like such a challenging, complicated role for anybody, an experienced actor, let alone somebody who hadn't done many big pictures. So how did you feel about it going into it?
There was quite a bit of pressure, just because, it was the first time doing a lead role, and then how complicated the character was and how many twists and turns he went through. And, there was quite a bit of pressure, but, once we started filming and once we started getting the ball rolling, it started out pretty good. The feel was very great because not many Hong Kong films have this kind of budget or this kind of, they were really well prepared going into the film, so I was very comfortable once we started. And the film stands up very well. So just to give the audience a bit of the backstory, and please jump in, Dan, because I'm just remembering how it happened from my memory, was that the original story was conceived by Jackie Chan as a vehicle for him, and it was kind of reinterpreted. The story of this guy getting amnesia and entering a different kind of world formed the basis for another movie that kind of an Eastern Western. Somebody kind of borrowed, if I can use the phrase, borrowed his idea. And then later he reinterpreted it as the film Who Am I? Right. And Teddy Chen, the director of this movie, had heard Jackie talk about it, and Jackie gave him permission and said, yes, well, I'm going to produce movies for Media Asia, and why not take this concept of a guy losing his memory and being in a terrorist unit. Right. And that was the original. The original title was called The Terrorist. Right. And the reason, as I remember it, that was changed is because we were shooting at Hong Kong Airport and they didn't want to be connected with the film. Yeah, it was hard to get sponsorship and stuff like that.
Right, with the name The Terrorist. And then originally it was Purple Rain. And we had a big meeting, and the powers that be at Media Asia announced we were going to do this film, Purple Rain. Right. And as the token Westerner, I put my hand up and said,
"Wait, Prince did that movie."
Well, I had to say the artist formerly known as Prince, which translates, kind of rather cumbersomely into Chinese, and they all looked at me like I was crazy. And then it was called Purple Storm.
Right. Well, I think it works out. The name is quite fitting.
And it's very striking. And here's your opening shot. Now, where are you shooting this?
We're shooting this way out in new territories in kind of this harbor, and it's a very just remote place, so we could do all the action scenes and stuff.
And there's Josie Ho, your partner in crime, and the boat, of course, never goes out to sea. You actually were moored the whole time.
Yeah, we were moored the whole time. Well, safety reasons and all that stuff, plus convenience in terms of getting all the equipment on.
And we started with an action, what's going to lead into an action sequence. And the action director for the movie is Dong Wai, who had formerly worked with Teddy on Downtown Torpedoes, which had been a big hit. And, of course, Dong Wai won practically all the awards going for action direction for this film. He won the Hong Kong Film Awards, the Taiwanese Award, and I think some minor awards as well. Right. And several people said to me, gee, why was the action in this film award-worthy? But what I found interesting, I don't know whether you agree with this, was that whereas in a lot of Hong Kong movies, they have the plot and they stop the story and they stop the characters to allow for a fight sequence. Yeah. In this movie, it was kind of holistic. All of the action came from the character.
Yeah, they're integral to the story. They weren't this stuff that, okay, this actor can do this move, so let's just put it in. Right. No, it was, let's think of how the action's going to fit this character and these type of people. How would they fight? How would they move? How would they do this and that? And then let's design the action scenes around that. Right. Which was pretty interesting. I mean, like here, this scene here with this steel
garrote.
Right, yeah. Garrote. And then all the other weapons that we use and stuff like that are kind of trying to fit the terrorist.
Right, not a pair of double hook swords or something.
Right. No, we wouldn't without something strange like that. So it was good.
And I look at the sequence here. I mean, obviously, you're somebody who had a martial arts background. You trained primarily in wushu. Right. And just to bring in your biography for some of the people who are maybe not familiar with your background, you're from San Francisco.
Right.
born and raised San Francisco,
Right.
and you train in wushu.
Right.
When you came to apply, your physical training to doing a movie like this, how is it different from doing martial arts per se?
I think it's really different because of course martial arts you're learning how to fight, you're learning how to do all these movements. Whereas movies, it's more about how the movements look on the screen and how you're actually painting a picture with your body movement. So in a sense, it's kind of like dance or something like that, where you're using physical movements to demonstrate a feeling or an emotion or whatever. And action filming is a lot like that. Maybe you're using punching and kicking techniques, but you're telling a story with the movement.
Right.
So it's really quite interesting. It's difficult at first because a lot of things maybe not make a lot of sense to you, the way you move and stuff like that. But it looks on screen, it looks like it makes a lot of sense.
Right.
So it's something you have to take some time to get used to.
And I remember you saying, as after the film would wrap, that you felt Dong Wai was more demanding of you than he might be of other actors because he knew you had the background.
Yeah, exactly. He was very safe. He would make sure everything was a safe movement. He would make sure people tested. But he put a lot of trust in me and said, "Look, I know you can do this. You can do this and this. So try your best and do these stunts." And I said, "Sure, fine." So I don't think I think I used a stunt double once because we were filming two things at one time.
Yeah.
I was filming drama inside and they were filming action outside, and everything else I did myself. And he.
I was going to ask about that because I'm probably. I mean, audiences. You can get away with less and less now with audiences,
right?
And looking and certainly I've seen a lot of these movies, and I was trying to think. Very few times that I saw it was obviously you most of the time in the movie.
Yeah, he made it very clear to me. Make sure your face is turned towards the camera so everyone knows it's you. It's not a stunt double.
Right.
It was good.
Now this guy, Emil Chau Wagin. It's really interesting. One thing about this film that I noticed when we actually got the final cast together was everybody was kind of against type. I mean, in your case, okay, you were a blank slate coming in because people didn't really have a perception of who you were. But Josie certainly had an image in the local entertainment industry, and it wasn't at all the same image as she is in the movie, where she's playing this ruthless killing machine, but somebody who actually, on one level of her being, still has a conscience and still has feelings. But she was perceived as this kind of quirky, wild pop star, rebel character. Emil Chau Wagin is like probably the most happy-go-lucky, easygoing of the Hong Kong singing stars, the Asian singing stars. He's very popular in Taiwan. And he comes across here and he's playing this kind of no-nonsense, straight-ahead cop role. And probably the most striking is the guy whose face I think we're going to see a bit later, which is Kwok-leung, who is this, how do you say, this kind of entrepreneur, suave, best-dressed man. I mean, I'd worked with him. I'd been on a tour in Taiwan with him to promote a TV series, and you just wouldn't recognize him as the same man in this film. Right. So I thought that was kind of interesting. I mean,
I think Teddy was able to, he did cast against type, but he also was able to see a bit of everyone's personality that sort of matched the character in some way and then pull that out of them. And so, Emil's like this happy-go-lucky guy, but I'm sure he has a serious side to him too. Yeah. And that's what Teddy wanted him to do in this character. Same thing with Gum-san is he wanted to use Kwok-leung's knowledge of movies because he's very, very, well versed in the entertainment business here.
And apparently, I mean, Kwok-leung is a contemporary of Jia Yun-fat and had been a popular TVB actor.
Yeah, they came around the same time there.
And apparently in those TV shows, he had played many of these kind of characters.
Right.
So people of Teddy's generation or people who spent many years in Hong Kong remembered him from that. Right. But myself and yourself, probably we just knew him as the
socialite.
Right, this kind of gentle, suave kind of guy.
No, I was surprised that he was going to start filming, doing movies again when he took the role, but it was quite fitting, I think.
And it was an interesting process because, again, correct me if I'm wrong on any of this, but my understanding from my conversations with Teddy was that going into it, in the early days, it was conceived as a vehicle that the central role was going to be played by Tony Leung Chiu-wai, and that at one stage the part of the terrorist leader seen here was going to be played by the other Tony Leung, and they were going to be brothers, or they were going to have a heavy makeup job on Tony Leung Gar-fai, one or the other, and for whatever reason it didn't work out. And in my mind, I think it worked out for the best because you would have had two Tony Leungs playing in a movie, whereas in this film, especially for international audiences now, the characters have a different resonance because people are the character.
Right.
You know, you have no preconception about who the person is. This is it's a wonderfully atmospheric introductory scene for Kwok-leung's character.
Yeah, it's very great. It's a very great coming out scene for this character.
And I think, you know, as early as possible in the day, we have to mention the score by Peter Kam. I've always thought, you know, it's a shame that in Hong Kong we don't do soundtracks of movies unless it's a blockbuster. Oh, there's your iguana.
There's my iguana.
Tell us about the iguana.
I guess they bought this iguana for 2 or 3 shots in the movie. He was in the opening scene and then this scene. And they didn't want him afterwards, so he was this
they were going to cook him, right?
Yeah, abandoned orphan. So
they were going to fry him.
I took him in, and now he lives in my house.
How big is he now?
He's like double this size, about 3 feet long.
And his name is
Clyde.
And the funny story about that is when we premiered this movie in London, of all the directors to turn up was Jim Fargo, the director of
Every Which Way But Loose.
Right, Every Which Way But Loose.
Which is why I named the iguana Clyde, because Clint Eastwood's pet in the movie was Clyde, and so it was a great
opening line when I said, Jim, meet Daniel, and I said, Jim's the director of Every Which Way But Loose, and Daniel looks him in the eye and says, hey, I named my iguana after you, which I think
after your movie, yeah,
that's one of the great
I think he thought it was a little weird.
Great introduction. Well, I mean, it's one of the great introductory lines of our time. So I was glad I was a witness to that.
Yeah, it was funny.
Who was the older gentleman here was wonderful. He doesn't have much to say, but he's a great reactor.
Yeah, he's a
who was he?
Mainland China director, I think.
Oh, is he? I haven't seen him in too much else.
He was really good. I mean, you know, a lot of the mainland Chinese actors have a lot of training and background, so they come out with something, you know, different.
Now, I'm guessing you didn't come on this set because it was up on the. You're not in the scene
in the Soho,
but this is actually the Soho area, and I think it's a real restaurant. I'm not sure if it's a Cambodian restaurant, but I know they shot.
It's a Manchurian, like a
is it? It's really a Manchurian place. Oh. And there's
Josie's.
Josie's intro scene as well. And
acting cool.
Yeah. And it was interesting because, I mean, talking about the character, I mean, I remember after Leung Chiu-wai pulled out, the part that was kind of up in the air for the longest time was the part of, I'm blanking on the guy's name. What's the terrorist commander's name? What's Kwok-leung's character name? You were... God, you're doored up. And here you see, ladies and gentlemen, the extensive research we put into this movie. Right. But Sik-hak is his channel. Sik-hak. And his character wasn't cast until almost the last minute. And Leung Gar-fai, John Lowe, and all these names were rolled around. But Leung Gar-fai was in the batting till the very last minute. And then I heard a story. Somebody said, that the script wasn't good enough. And every time I think this, I think, if you're going to say that, you must have something better on the table. And I never saw him do anything else, you know, in the last year that was as good or better than what was on offer here. But again, it worked to the film's advantage. Another thing I think worth mentioning about Purple Storm is the production design, the way that there's this color scheme. This is like I always call this the blue room.
Yeah, there's these very, you know, cool blues and grays going on here.
And the terrorist unit.
The terrorist team has got these greens and sort of military type colors.
Right.
It's interesting because, like, when I came on this set here, I was really impressed because it was an empty office building and it was just a concrete shell. And I walked in and there's all this stuff, and I thought it was real.
Yeah.
I thought it was all real. You know, usually you walk onto set and you can tell how fake everything is, but it was done so well that I thought it was an actual.
Yeah, just
place,
so the audiences know that the location we saw just then is actually in an office block in the Western District of Hong Kong Island. And people will not know this, of course, but you're like, what's your quality? You're an architect. You're qualified. What's your qualification?
Well, I studied architecture in university. I have a bachelor's of architecture's degree. So
you have an extra appreciation of the work involved.
Right. You know, I was actually thinking about going into set design before I started acting.
Yeah.
And you know, this is a great movie for great sets.
I mean, wonderfully designed.
This chair that I'm sitting in here, this is crazy. It was all hydraulic.
So it really worked.
Yeah, and in fact, you'll see later it becomes a bed and then it becomes a chair, and it works all in hydraulics. Except for the first day, they wanted me to test, you know, the chair to see if it was the right size. Yeah. And before I got on it, they turned it on, and the thing just, like, almost exploded, you know. I was glad I wasn't on it, like, when that happened. Otherwise, I'd be very badly injured. Yeah, it's all steel and aluminum and all this stuff. And
just what you need with, maybe you're wet with, like, wires, or electric wires on you. Yeah, fry me.
Yeah, exactly.
Fry me to the moon. But, I remember you telling me that just by looking at the set and looking at props like that, you realize that this is another level of filmmaking.
Yeah, no, it's very different from what we normally do.
Right.
This scene, these few scenes here in the interrogation room, were like the first days of work for me. And here's the chair moving.
Right.
But I think we filmed this like 5 days, and it was my first 5 days on the set, and I was stuck in this chair all day long.
Getting the shit kicked out of you by Patrick Tam.
Exactly. And, the straps and everything, they really strap you down.
Yeah.
So when they take a break, everybody would walk away, and I'd still be stuck in this chair with this 1,000-watt light beaming down on my head. Yeah. And I was like, can you turn that light off at least? You know?
That's the moment we should have got you to sign a 3-picture deal.
Yeah.
That would have been the time to negotiate.
Yeah, you could have started beating me like this.
Patrick Tam, who won the Best Supporting Actor for Beast Cops.
Yeah.
And what happened to him? I don't know. Here he is, a supporting role in Purple. He's still around.
Yeah, he's still around. He's busy. I just did a film with him recently.
He's a good actor.
He's a superb actor.
Yeah.
And,
I don't know what it is. People
really
come out and they do an amazing performance and they get an award or whatever, and then I guess there's always more talented actors than there are good scripts and good projects to sustain them.
I mean, that's true. If you want to be choicy, then that's your decision.
One thing I always wondered about in this movie, obviously, and one thing I like about this scene, it's funny because I just came today from the set of another film where the principal character is meant to have got a bullet in the head, and he's walking around with long flowing locks, this kind of like undamaged head of hair, and I'm thinking, where did the bullet go in and where did it come out? And in this movie, we have the realism. It's obvious that you've had some kind of operation because you've sustained a head injury.
Right.
But given the fact that films are shot out of sequence, how did they manage to determine how long your hair was going to be?
How long my hair?
Well, I mean, it was going to grow back over the period of the film.
Right.
I'm guessing. And so you had to...
I think they just kept it one length.
So it never got any longer.
It's the scar on my head that they had to keep shaving every time I got to the set every day. So it was like in the morning I'd shave and then get to the set and they had to shave my head a little bit for that scar on the head.
And here we have the lovely Joan Chen.
Joan Chen, yeah.
Who, of course, is, at the time she did this, she really wasn't acting too much.
Yeah, she
was
just directed Show the Sent Down Girl, right? And she was about getting ready to do...
And I mean, I'm sure Dan doesn't want to say anything about a fellow performer, but I think I should say about, one thing about Joan when she came on the film. What we were trying to do was move slowly towards having international names, recognition value in the film. I mean, we went a step further with the later film, Gen Y Cops, where we had actual, established Hollywood American actors come over. But Joan obviously had done, any number of Hollywood pictures. And I think if we'd got her a bit earlier, it might have worked better because she'd been doing a bunch of B pictures. And but just before this, she'd had this big success with her directorial debut. So maybe she thought she was being hired to direct her scenes. And so when I look at the film, the choices that she makes seem to be self-generated rather than in keeping with what everybody else is doing. So as tactfully as possible, Dan, how was your working relationship with Joan?
Well, no, it was for the most part pretty good. She had a lot of ideas that she wanted to add, whether they were appropriate or not. It's not really for me to say, but
I understand. She seemed like a nice person. The times that I saw her on the set. It was good
because, she comes from basically, a lot of people think she's from China or Hong Kong, but she's not. She is born in China, but her style of acting and stuff was all developed in the States. So she's very kind of Hollywood style acting, and it was refreshing to have that kind of a new style brought in. Our timing was different.
To me, I look at it. I don't think she necessarily was bad. It's just I felt that she was, maybe for the reasons you've just said, she was slightly out of sync. Now, I mean, I got to ask, because I never asked you before, but they kept you in a chair a long time, but that wasn't method acting, right? That was...
The urination there?
That was some other substance.
No, it was...
Tell me it was another substance.
It was a little too much, to be real.
Well, I was just wondering. Well, you told me you were in the chair a long time.
Yeah.
Anything can happen.
No, they did let me go to the bathroom when I wanted to, but...
Damn it.
It wasn't one of those improv scenes there. No, that was planned out.
It was funny. It was when they did The Marathon Man, and you've seen that movie, and Dustin Hoffman's meant to have been up for 3 days and 3 nights, and he actually stayed up for 3 days and 3 nights, and comes on the set, and he's very proud. He tells Laurence Olivier, and Olivier says, Dustin, haven't you ever heard of acting? Right. And so, that would be taking method a bit far if you didn't take a pee for like 3 days so that you could... What was that? It was a sponge filled with something?
No, it was...
How did they do it?
It was they stick a tube up my pants, and then they pump it out.
Yeah.
It's funny that you say that because I was working on another movie the other night with Eric Zhen, Zhen Ziwai, right? And it was a bathroom scene where we had to urinate. And the first take, he actually urinated. And
there you go.
He was standing next to me. We were supposed to be going at the same time. And I just couldn't deliver my lines. It was so funny. You know?
God.
He got kind of mad at me because that was his method acting in place right there. But
and he couldn't do it for take 2 or 3.
No, because he was dry.
That's the challenge. The well was dry. Anyway, he's a fascinating man to me, Chung Chi-wai, because he's done these silly comedy shows.
Right.
He's like our Beat Takeshi, isn't he?
Yeah,
silly
he is.
comedy
Very,
shows.
Very, very, very much
movies.
like that. He's
So
a
we
very
are
serious actor.
Back at the restaurant, the girl on the right there, Cordelia Choi, who been around and she'd been in a bunch of other movies in very supporting roles, and she got to be a member of the team here.
There's Moses.
Moses Chan,
who was in Blade, Treyarch's Blade.
Yeah, he was the film everybody remembers him from, and of course he had quite a big role in Gen X Cops.
Right.
And then those films almost overlapped, Gen X Cops and Purple Storm.
Right.
And he came
as soon as
straight
I
onto
finished Gen X Cops, I started
right.
doing this.
And Moses was another one of the few people that actually carried over. He has great bone structure, that guy.
I really like this scene here where Emil is about to see
and the music
Sakat for the first time.
The way it's
music
scored
is excellent.
It just really is.
There's a clue here, and then he gets this sense something's going on. There's this ashes, there's this aroma smell, right, that you could almost feel.
Right.
And then he senses something in the background.
Right. And it's like I think it's Godard said, never state what you can imply.
Here
and
it is.
it's
very cool, very cool.
Yeah, it really is. And it's camera language, isn't it? Because there's no dialogue. It's just
Well,
telling you everything you need to know.
I guess we should talk about the cinematography. Arthur
Yes,
Wong.
indeed. Arthur Wong and pound for pound, if you can use that term about a cinematographer, the best guy.
He's won so many awards.
Yeah.
And I think his best works are action films.
Yep.
He's able to add this kind of movement. Look at this craning shot right here.
Beautiful. Yeah.
To make a whole different sense of the feel of the movie, and also give you a different feel for Hong Kong.
Yeah.
Because I've never seen Hong Kong like this filmed before.
Absolutely not. I mean, and it's interesting that you're absolutely right. I mean, action film is his forte. He did Once Upon a Time in China is probably, for the people watching this movie, maybe the film of his that they're most familiar with.
Right.
But also he shot Hitman, which maybe narrative-wise wasn't great, but in terms of its look, was very well shot.
No, he definitely adds. The great thing about this movie was the team we were working with. I mean, from the actors to the technical crew to the art direction to everything. It was this one team that kind of worked very well in sync, and everybody added their own little piece to the movie, which made it turn out, so great, I think.
I mean, my feeling is that, on a lot of productions, I mean, probably elsewhere in the world, but I mean, I only really have experiences here, but you get a sense when people, if a group of people don't care, then no one starts to care. And on this movie, everybody seemed to have a sense that they were doing something really quite special.
Well, or sometimes you have a cinematographer is like, okay, ask the director, so what do you want here? What do you want here? What do you want here? But Arthur comes and says, this is what we're going to do.
Yeah.
This is how I vision this scene, and we're going to do it this way. And then maybe they'll talk about it, change this or change that. But it's this discussion that happens that what filmmaking should be about, what any art form should be about, is a discussion and dialogue between the people working on the project. So it's not just this one authoritative person going, I want this, I want this, I want this, but everyone using their knowledge and making it work together in sync with kind of one harmonious thing.
Yeah, a collaboration, which is certainly what was here. Just some factual stuff. The shots where you saw Kwok-leung coming into the building, and this is actually shot at Star TV, who's one of the companies that Radio Asia works close with. So one of the benefits of working with them was we got access to this location. And in fact to this newsreel footage, because they have a news division. And what we're setting up now is really quite early in the piece, the biggest and the most expensive special effect in the movie, which is the detonation of this building, which was engineered by Joe Viscozel, who also did the effects for... Well, Independence Day is what he won the Oscar for, but he's done many, many other films.
He helped out in Gen X Cops.
Yeah, he blew up the convention center in Gen X Cops, and here we have the cable TV center. And actually, one of my colleagues and a good friend of Daniel, called Peter Poon, he worked at this building for many years. He was just...
I think he's glad to see it.
Yeah, he was like, burn. I can't say the middle word. Burn, He would let it go. And all these guys, all of the ATF team, the anti-terrorist unit, each have their story to tell. So the guy at front of the screen in the middle there is Eric Moo.
Eric Moo, yeah.
Who is a singer or actor and singer.
Yeah, he's been in Taiwan. He's from Malaysia.
Right. And he hasn't done that much Hong Kong movie work.
Yeah, I just did a movie with him called Hit Team.
Yeah.
He plays a renegade SDU team.
Oh, okay.
Yeah. He's a great guy. He's a great guy. Tons of jokes.
The atmosphere seemed good when you had the bunch of you guys, and that was kind of good because, like, one by one, everybody dies. So I mean, it kind of probably there was a real feel because people stopped working on the film, so you kind of missed them.
Where did he go?
Yeah, exactly. Now. The building that we're seeing here is actually a military hospital,
right, which is now abandoned.
Right, and the Hong Kong government.
It's scary, this place.
Yeah, and the Hong Kong government, who support the local film industry, such a huge degree, charge huge amounts of money for production companies to use former government land. And I mean, forget about any damn investment fund. If they would just free up locations like this for a nominal sum.
Oh, this was expensive, this location?
All of them are expensive.
Oh, really?
It's outrageous what they charge. And how they dare stand up and say we're supporting local filmmakers. I mean, I don't know. Maybe Hollywood filmmakers get the same shake.
Right.
But anyway.
Well, so I think in Hollywood, the L.A. government supports a lot. Like, if you want to close down a road and stuff like that, they don't charge you.
I think almost any place in the world. And there was a period when New York was reported to be difficult to shoot in. And I know they took really strenuous efforts to make it easier. And they had a special unit. I mean, they have a special unit at the Hong Kong police, but their responsibility is just to say no to everybody.
Right.
So that was that.
But this hospital is great. It's a really scary place at night. There's a lot of things happening there at night when we were waiting around to shoot.
What kind of thing?
I don't know. There was one thing that was really funny. It was one night I was walking back from the set to our makeup area, right? And I hear this noise, right? And it's just pat, 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 pat. And I got really scared. And I walk down the hall, and I see really far down, it looks like a woman jumping rope, right? And I was completely freaked out. And I didn't know whether to walk forward or not. And then I just kept walking, and it turns out to be Joan. She was just exercising, jumping rope, and it scared the
white
crap out
woman.
of me.
But it's an eerie place.
Yeah. Because she was wearing all white, this gray kind of dress for the costume.
Because I remember somewhere that was like that was when the coldest night of my life in Hong Kong was the opening damn scene for Gen X Cops when we were all out at the old refugee camp.
Right.
But I think places like people sometimes have like a memory.
Right.
And both hospitals have it, and definitely the camp had it,
right?
Where you could feel
this
some
eerie,
kind, and things that were really quite normal took on a different aspect.
But it's good; it adds a lot of
it does
feeling to the scenes.
Yeah.
This scene here, this stuntman, he just jumped off the roof of the lower building there.
Who did that? Was it Ajay or one of the others?
I can't remember actually, but they just kind of saw the arms on the car and they said, "Okay, jump," and he just jumped.
Yeah.
And I was standing there watching. I was completely shocked. He just smashed the roof through the car.
And the thing about Hong Kong stuntmen is, frankly, they're not paid great. We can say that, I think, without fear of contradiction. Here, forget the stuntmen for a moment. Look at this.
Josie and Gumsan doing this.
And what floor did he jump from, Gumsan, for that?
I think it was like the 11th floor, all the way down.
Because what I remember is that Teddy had said to him, "You need only jump from the 7th." And he said, "I'll be just as scared from the 7th as the 11th. So I might as well go all the way."
Right.
And all right, Josie doing it, full credit. But Kwok-leung doing it, I was like, damn, because he's the last person you'd expect to see abseiling off the building.
No, he did a lot of his own action. In fact, in the end, you'll see some scenes where he actually got injured.
Right.
And involved me too. So
right.
I was a little worried about him because he's not like.
He's not. Let's be honest.
He's not an action guy.
He's not a young
kid
not an
either.
athlete, and he lost. If you could. I have a picture of me and him together in Taiwan, and you would never pull him out of a police lineup as Kwok-leung if you saw him in this film.
Right,
no way.
Right.
He lost so much weight, and he really gave it 100%. That's the exterior of the ATF headquarters. Yeah. Nice atmospheric shot. Obviously a couple of members have been killed. So
I see that building every morning when I open my window.
And
I live right near there.
What I find is interesting about this movie is a sense that people's death actually matters. Because a lot of the time with action movies,
people
they really
just die.
Yeah, and they just get over it.
Right.
People's partners or wives or anything, people die, and it's just a plot point.
Right.
And they get back into the mix.
Well, which is also why the side cast was chosen really carefully because they Teddy wanted us to get involved with the characters, and when they do die, like you were saying earlier, when they start falling off the team, you actually care about them, and you want to know what's going to happen now. You know, this guy died, she died, he died.
Right. And it should mean something, because there's a history to these characters before the film began.
Right.
What's interesting here is, you know, I always look at these, so often in movies, even on very big productions, you see scenes like this, supposedly shot in a high floor of a building, and it's actually a window, and outside you see a fake skyline. And even on quite big movies, sometimes the skyline looks so fake to me. And the danger is now you see a film like this, and the real skyline, people go, damn, that's a good special effect. Right. Because they can't tell. And the reason is because you're really up there.
It
it's
really
real.
It's
what
real,
you're seeing is what you get.
That's the amazing thing about Hong Kong, because you can actually do that because it's so densely packed city. You know?
Yeah. And a lot of the times what you see is what you get. And the reason for that is they couldn't afford to do it any other way. You know,
but it works out good here.
So it works to our advantage. One thing, now the windows, were they tinted? Because it must have got. Did you get any trouble when it got hot in there? When
No,
the sun
it
was
got pretty warm, but I think there's air conditioning going on.
And I mean, this is interesting because it sets up a situation that was really not really developed. Was the relationship kind of a parental thing with the good mom and the good father, and then the absent evil father.
Right.
Which,
and it was like, it's the decision what Todd is supposed to choose. Does he choose his father, who's this bad guy, or does he choose his new mother and father, which treat him really well?
Right.
But in the same time, they also trick him. You know? Everyone tricks him. Everyone uses him. And he can't decide what to do. He doesn't know what to do. He knows what he used to be. He knows what he is now. And he's at a crossroads. He doesn't know how to choose.
Because the key line that, I mean, you know, please let it be the mantra for this century, was at the end of the film when your character says, you know, I don't understand. All I know is I don't want to kill anymore.
Right.
And if that could be an idea that people took away from this movie, good. Because at the end of the day, all the sides, all the politics, all the religious stuff, you won't find any kids out there who grow up thinking, gee, you know what, I'd like to kill people.
Right.
That comes in later.
You know, I think one of the main themes of the movie is like, yeah, you have all this history, you have all this past, but if you get a chance to start over again, what do you choose? Do you choose to start anew, or is it inbred in you to be this way? Is it inbred in you to be evil?
Right. With the character, I was talking some more earlier about, like, you know, physical changes, but again, because of the fact that films are shot out of sequence, but your character, the character arc is somebody who is going through this journey of you know, awakening. How do you keep track of where you were from scene to scene? Because Hong Kong films are not necessarily very good at helping you do that.
Right. We, for the most part, tried to film as much as possible in order, but then, you know, I just kept, I keep a personal notebook of, you know, what degree we're at what point, you know, and you just got to keep that very clear in your head. It's important to be organized, otherwise the continuity in the acting gets, you know, can get messed up.
I mean, you told me that you did some research into people with brain damage. Well, I'm working with Media Asia, probably there's plenty of material there anyway. But you did some, you know, you actually researched the role.
I researched a lot, I researched a lot on people that had memory loss problems and, like, also with relationships between psychiatrists and psychotic patients and stuff like that. Because there's been a lot of research, you know, going back to the theme that we were talking about earlier, about whether, you know, insane people, whether they're born that way or they develop that way or whatever, and what is
genetics versus what is genetics versus conditioning?
Into, right? Because this character Todd is born into this terrorist society, so that's all he knows.
Yes.
You know, and it's the question is then again raised is like, are you bred this way or is it innately in your genes? You know.
And I thought, by the way, just then, I think it was very noble of Peter Poon to donate his magazine collection for the film, and he got them back afterwards, by the way, in case anybody wonders what. If anybody, whatever happened to those magazines.
Peter's going to kill you, eh?
Yeah. If he ever sits through this commentary, well, you'll probably tell him.
Right.
And this is the first time we introduced the motif, I think, the butterfly motif, into the film.
Right.
I mean,
it's very subtle, but
and I mean, and you know what? It's interesting is, like, you know, I guess if you were talking about a European movie, it might be a butterfly motif. But for a Hong Kong action piece, to have that kind of texture to it, and that's a word I keep, you know, kind of thinking about when I think about Purple Storm, the texture of the characters, the design,
the symbolism, Yeah, you very rarely see like direct symbolism like that in Hong Kong movies.
Right.
Mainly because it takes a lot of time to prepare, and where usually you don't have much time to do it. And
I mean, I think one thing is that, I mean, it's a cop-out in a way, but people always say to me, well, why is this movie like that? Why is this movie like that? And I said, you know what? Frankly, the local audience, the Asian audience, are undiscerning. If you give them a good time, a lot of the finer points they're not too concerned about. And maybe people take me to task on that, but I really feel that's the case. And so filmmakers do get sloppy because they presume on that. But now films are getting more expensive, and now we have this new world market. And Purple Storm, to me, was very obviously aimed at a world market.
Right.
And interestingly, it found its market and its appreciation outside of Hong Kong because, I mean, the film was highly regarded. It won all technical awards.
Right.
Critically, was what it was. It did okay, but it was not a breakout box office smash. But overseas market, people constantly come back and say, "Wow, that's."
Well,
really
I think the important thing in any kind of filming is don't underestimate the audience, because if you think, okay, the audience is not smart enough to get this or understand this, then you're totally underestimating their intelligence.
And it's a self-fulfilling prophecy, because basically if you start doing that, things go worse and worse and worse until the audience leaves you.
Right.
And then you say, oh, they're too dumb to appreciate films. So
So what we did here is we just went all out. We just said, this is how filmmaking should be done. This is how a story should be done.
Where's this location?
This is in North Point, in an apartment in North Point.
So maybe people who haven't been to Hong Kong wouldn't realize, but one thing I think is interesting about this film is the fact that, even given the fact that Hong Kong is so crowded and congested, the whole film seems to exist, for me, in a world in which the people in the film are the only people. Because there's very few scenes where you see real people interrelating, like cab drivers or waiters or everything's... There aren't many scenes in in the real Hong Kong, so it's like a kind of a world within a world. Is that something that was intentional, you think?
I'm not sure whether it was intentional, but I think it was the right choice, because otherwise it takes away from the intensity of the characters. Because each character, all the supporting cast has their important part, and then if you start throwing in other things, elements to it, I think that it might throw off the focus of the story.
Right.
With this story, I think it's important to be that way.
And when you were working, now you don't read Chinese.
No.
So in terms of a practical approach to the script, you basically had an English translation, and how were you actually memorizing the dialogue?
I don't think I had an English translation.
You never had
a synopsis.
Okay.
But no, this is one of the rare instances in Hong Kong where you have the full script before the movie starts. So I was able to review the whole script, a couple months in advance and go over the dialogue. Yeah. And which helps a lot. It helps a lot for in terms of getting the acting down right. And like I said, the continuity and all that stuff, because you know what's going on, you know when it's going to happen. Yeah.
There's a rare moment when you actually did get to show, because you're normally on the receiving end in this film.
Right. I
get beat up a lot, take out these guys. Right. Where's the temple?
The temple's actually, it is right across the street from the apartment.
Okay.
This is another interesting thing, is that they got the locations to sort of fit well. They weren't like this piecemeal quilt thing. It was they actually exist like that.
But I was going back to that because, of course, international audiences watching the film wouldn't appreciate this, but the challenge that you have, because you're not a native Cantonese speaker, going into the movie and doing, how much of a challenge was that? Additional to the acting that you'd be called upon to do if the film had been in English.
Well, of course, if you're not speaking your mother language, then it is a difference.
Did you redub stuff, or is it pretty much as
I redubbed maybe about 20% of what was going on, but because I had time to go over the dialogue beforehand, most of it was down. The redubbing we do is because of sound problems and all that kind of stuff.
In the story, is there a rationale given for why the Cambodians are speaking Cantonese, or we just took that as a convention, like in American movies, everybody speaks English?
Right, exactly.
It was the same thing. It was just a convention that we had there. Because there's a few lines of Cambodian, and then we primarily...
I think, that gives a sense that these are foreign people, and then they slip back into Cantonese for, conventional sake.
Sure. That's a nice... I always like that shot.
This angle is great. In this temple. This temple is really great. These local temples in Hong Kong, these are one of the great kind of very Hong Kong things, because this temple structure is only seen in Hong Kong. It's not in China or whatever.
Really? So there's something I'm not aware of. They mean that the religious centers in Hong Kong, the older temples, are different in architecture to those in China.
Yeah,
elsewhere.
right. Because in China you have mostly timber structure that's like the red pillars and red woodwork, but in Hong Kong there's very little woodwork. Right. It's mostly this brick and stone.
Yes.
And.
But I think that it really. The thing about Hong Kong that you can do, which maybe you can't do in too many cities, is this amazing juxtaposition of buildings like the ATF building with this high-tech, glossy, state-of-the-art modern office block. And literally in its shadow, you'll find something like a temple or a rundown house or something. And juxtaposing those is interesting.
Yeah, that's what happens when you get a dense city like this. Is there's so much, the composition of the city is so rich and the texture is so varied.
Here we have Teresa Lee, who had been Miss Hong Kong. And you know what? She's actually, I think, a good actress.
Oh, she is. She's
in
great.
Search of a part that's really worthy of her. She's done a few things.
She had this scene is...
It's the only laugh you get in the movie.
It's the only like kind of comedic part of the film. And at the time we were filming, it seemed like kind of out of place, but it sort of fit. It fits into the movie all right.
And you know what? I very well remember the premiere because it's such an intense ride to this point.
Right.
That even a very small thing, like when you were hugging her and there's a noise and effect and everything, it got such a big laugh because the audience had been so tense from the opening till then. And there was a relief.
Realistically speaking, sometimes it is funny. I mean, if you're this guy and you don't know who you are or whatever, there's going to be some parts that are funny about it. It's just like this life is like that. It's not so intense all the way through, and it was good. It provided a brief break for the audience to sort of see the lighter side of the story.
And I think it's interesting because in this instance, the audience has information that your character does not. And it's a delicate balancing act because you have to kind of be aware of that, but at the same time not play to it. But the audience, you don't want the character to seem stupid because the audience knows something that he doesn't. So it's a question of it's not like a Total Recall where the audience doesn't know until the big ending, what's happening. But here they know from the outset. And it's keeping the character interesting, even though the audience know the outcome ahead of time.
I mean, that was the hard thing about this character, I think, is to let the audience see his struggle, but not make him seem stupid. Because that's not what he is. He's not stupid. He's just totally confused.
You talked before about doing actual real-world research into people with mental illness and amnesia. Right. In terms of film performances, was there anybody you'd seen play an equivalent role in a film that influenced you for this movie? Anybody had played a mentally
for this film, person? I tried not to look at other films because I didn't want to use that as a reference. I wanted to have something very fresh because when I looked at the script, I said, this is something that's, hasn't really been done that much before, and I don't want to go based on other films. So I just went straight to raw research, which was like, I researched on the Pol Pot regime, which because these characters' backgrounds are based in Cambodia, right? Yeah. And that was really interesting because I learned a lot about sort of the history of Cambodia and how terrible it was. And why, and it helps to develop why these people are this way. Why Kwok-leung is so righteous about his cause. Because in those times, back in the 70s in Cambodia, it was chaos. And if you didn't have this guiding light or something to follow, whether it was right or wrong, you could be in serious danger or in serious trouble. And, they had their ideology that they wanted to follow, and that helped them bring peace to their minds. But although it could have been a wrong decision. This is a great scene here where you see Hong Kong in the background. It's just amazing.
It's a great shot. Right. And I think it's interesting, that's one of the wonderful things about being an actor and a writer for that matter, is, think about it, Dan, in the normal run of your life, would you ever get up one morning and say, you know what, I really want to get inside the head of Cambodian people, or the history of Cambodia. Right. You just, maybe you would. I don't know. I certainly don't know the areas and experiences that I have from being involved with film. Probably the same for you, where you think at the end of the day, boy, that really was worth going through. Even I met people who did movies, and they said, like they shot a film in Indonesia or somewhere, and it was a bad movie, and they said, well, yeah, I admit the film was bad, but what a great experience to get inside that world and the life.
Well, it was difficult, too, because I had a friend in high school who was from Cambodia, and she went through all that terrorism stuff. Half her family was killed during the Pol Pot regime. And so, I'm researching the people that killed her family, and it was difficult because I was good friends with her in high school, and I understood, the pain she went through. But yet I had to sort of understand why the people did what they did, And
I think there's an awful danger if you say, this is a monster, this person is a monster, and leave it at that. Because if you can't explain it, you can't understand it, you can't solve it, or have an approach to our new millennium attitude towards these ancient evils. And if you just say, "Is a creature," who was this guy, by the way? This gentleman.
I'm not sure. I wasn't.
He was it. There was an insert shot, so you were there when he was expounding.
Right.
Because there was a guy earlier, I didn't say anything because we were talking about something else, but there's a guy with the glasses earlier. Looks a bit like Yunhua. He's got like long hair. Jupiter was actually the unit photographer. I remember you told me he was like he's a very how does one put it? He's a very energetic unit photographer. He'd ask you to restage scenes so he could shoot the pictures,
which was kind of a pain sometimes.
But I have to tell you that
the stills were amazingly beautiful.
They were.
I worked with this guy 6 times already.
Oh, he was
great.
Also on Gen X Cops, and we get fantastic because he's done exhibitions and whatever. But I appreciate when you're shooting the movie is enough of a headache, let alone having to pose for too many pictures. But Hong Kong films traditionally, I mean, certain film companies whose names I better not mention, they really do not document the films, and this does become a problem, particularly when you start taking it into the world market.
Right.
Now here we are at the flyover in Wan Chai, setting up this big action sequence.
This was difficult to stage because there's like hundreds of extras. They had to be running across this bridge and screaming. Plus we had all this...
and you've avoided the curse of the laughing extras, which was good.
Yeah, right.
And there were none of them
No, there was
it
was very serious. And it was a Sunday afternoon. And very quiet day, but you had these hundreds of extras screaming, and running across this bridge. Plus these special effects that had to be added in later. So I think this is a great scene. This blowing up here is all computer done. Yeah. And then here comes the extras. They start running. Yeah. And we're on this bridge, and these hundreds of extras start running across, and you could feel the whole thing shaking. And I'm like, oh my God, this is real. And this is where a point where your natural acting takes over. This is when they start running here.
You really feel it.
Yeah, the whole thing was bouncing.
Oh God, here they come.
I'm like, this bridge wasn't designed for this.
Yeah. But what I like about Arthur's style is it's kind of unobtrusive. He knows when to use which lens. And I think the audience react to the storytelling, the camera storytelling, without saying, hey, that's good cinematography.
Right.
Because to me, good cinematography sometimes is like good special effects. If you notice it, it's not really good.
No.
Because it's not to the service of the plot. That's the exception.
Right.
And that's an effect shot going off the bridge there. Actually, could have been done for real. It hasn't been done, but in this instance, it was. Why was that an effect shot? Just because it was you guys?
I think because of the speed of the truck had to be going. You could do it like really slow and then speed it up, but it would look kind of funny. So they decided to do it this way.
Right. And the one question people asked me about the movie was like, why the ATF were just. None of them were really able to put up a good fight against the Cambodians, but I guess it's just that the good guys have, in this instance, I mean, the reason that Kwok-leung manages to get away is that Emil has a conscience.
Well, the other thing is, if you think about it realistically, like these terrorists, they have all this experience fighting and killing all these people and doing real battle, whereas like these kind of police, how often do they really do that? And
in fact,
shows.
There isn't even an ATF unit in...
No, ATF is fictional.
Somebody was doing an article. There is an ATF in America. What is it? The tax... No.
Alcohol and tobacco.
Yeah, alcohol and tobacco. That's right. Yeah. Something we didn't realize.
It's like the DEA.
It was when we were doing Gen Y Cops, and I didn't realize till we were halfway through that I'd given the name Ian Curtis to the Paul Rudd character, who was the lead singer of Joy Division, which it escaped me. I mean, maybe on some level I knew who it was. But people said, hey, man, you're really into alternative music. And I'm like, no, sorry, I had no clue.
Accidental.
Yeah, there we go. Again, nice.
Very cool.
The music score there. Right. And just the right reaction. And here's Cordelia's moment. Now, this scene, I remember in the early cuts, was her demise, which is just about to come up, was much longer. And it was getting a laugh, which is kind of in the wrong place.
Right.
It's
a rough way to die, though.
It's a rough way to die. Even now, the shot coming up here, when she goes off, to me, that flying shot is a little bit much. Yeah. But when she hits, it's roadkill. It's rough. And it's pretty nasty.
Yeah, look at the way her body's contorted there.
That looks like the real deal. It was the flying shot. But originally, actually, the flying shot, and it was a little bit more graphic than that. Yeah.
I told Teddy, you got to
It was getting people laughing. And And of course, this guy telling us a complete pack of lies, which never happens in Hong Kong. The government and
Yeah, I like these things, these scenes here, because they're very realistic. It's like you see all this stuff in the media
about the movie being in its. That's the real world,
right? That shot there, you have the guy rattling off that bullshit, and then there's Emil there having to listen to it, but then he's knowing the truth about it all. Yeah,
what happened? Now, where are we here? This was the docks
in Chim Sa Choi, the post office. It happens to be right on the water.
Right.
This is a really amazing location. It seems like a set, but it's there. It's real. It's beautiful. Yeah. It's really great.
And the ambiance and the way that it's this wonderful. It really looks like a guerrilla warfare camp.
Yeah.
And totally different to the juxtaposition with the ATF world, which is all this kind of blue and then the cold grey colour, and this is all very browns and greens. And the first confrontation between you two. What was your preparation? How do you prepare for a scene like this? For a Hong Kong movie, because normally you don't have much time.
Right, this I had plenty of time to prepare.
Yeah.
One thing you can't prepare for is when you don't have the actual actor there to do it with. But because Kwok-leung is such an intense person, you know, it's like you barely have to act, really, because he's just staring at me. And you just feel that sense of, like, evil and discomfort. Because at this point I know who he is, you know. Yeah. But I'm supposed to be an undercover at this point, you know. And I'm trying to get him to believe me, you know, and this tense, it's really tense scene, you know, and
really you're arguing for your, not begging for your life, but kind of persuading for your life.
Yeah, I'm apologizing for what happened and asking him to take me back, and it was real. It was real. The way he was looking at me was great.
And Josie, one of the thing about Josie was that, I mean, for most of the film, she doesn't say anything,
right?
Which is something I hadn't realised till we came to do the English dub. And we were just fast-forwarding for the whole damn film. And I realised she hardly says anything. And I think the reason I didn't realise that is because she was so well used by Teddy. I'd never seen her really even anywhere this good in any of the other films that I've seen her in, when she was really expressing everything just through her eyes and body language.
I think her role was one of the most difficult ones, and she pulled it off quite well. Because, you know, when you don't have dialogue, then it's like, what do you go for? But it was all in the eyes. It was all in the eyes. And her character is tough because she plays a character who's brought into this world because of she was born into it, but also that she was made to marry this guy, right? And that's all she knew, you know. And whether it was love or not, she had this duty for this man, Todd, which you know, you can tell by the way she looks. She has this intense love for him. She wants him to remember who she was, because that's all she knew. That's the only comfort she had in her world. And Josie did a very good job, I think.
And she was nominated for Best Supporting Actress both in Taiwan and Hong Kong. And I mean, she didn't win, and she should. In my opinion, she should have, because I think there's a difference between the very theatrical acting that sometimes gets
the
appreciated,
crying and all that business,
right, and screen acting, which is, you know, I mean, Anthony Hopkins is someone. He's such a master of. I was watching Meet Joe Black the other day. He's such a master of screen acting. You know, like don't just do something, stand there, and that's what Josie does. And I thought Kwok-leung got the shadings of this character just perfectly, and he did manage to find the human being inside of this person who is awful.
Yeah, I mean, you see
capable of these awful things.
His cause is so wrong, but then he's so passionate about it. You feel the passion he has for what he's doing. I mean, of course, we don't show the side of his brutality very much, but you feel his passion, which makes it difficult for Todd to go back, because he sees this guy that cares for him. He sees this guy that totally believes in his cause, and he doesn't know what to do. Todd doesn't know what to do at all.
Now, in an early draft of the script, this was actually a love scene. This was going to be the love scene. So what was the rationale behind it being a kind of an aborted love scene, as it is?
Well, I think it was staying in true with the character, which is that he really doesn't know who she is.
Right.
And he didn't want to do anything which could upset, you know, what was happening between the characters and his development. And this is what was the painful part, is because he you know, he has this beautiful woman in front of him, but he doesn't know who she is. It's supposedly his wife. And it also sets up her feeling for the rest of the movie, which is like
rejection.
Rejection, and she knows, oh wow, he really doesn't remember me. This person that we loved each other and we had this child together, he doesn't really remember.
Because you were telling me that, you know, in the research you did, that in most of the cases where or I've heard this separately, it's also true, I think, when people do suffer this amnesia and the husband cannot remember anything, that they almost always, the marriage breaks up eventually because that shared...
Yeah, I forgot to mention that one of my
yeah.
experiences for the research was that I have my next door neighbor back in the States,
Right.
he was in a severe skiing accident
Yeah.
and lost all his memory.
Really?
And not only that, he lost a lot of physical motor skills, and he had to basically start over as a child again.
Right.
And he was like 40-something years old,
Yeah.
and he was a very successful architect. He was kind of what influenced me to become to study architecture. And he lost it all, and they tried to keep it together. The family tried to keep it together, but it just didn't work out. It didn't stay together. And
it must be difficult. It must be almost like waking up one day and you're married to a different person.
Right. And
it's hard enough being married to the same person.
His wife, she was struggling,
yeah.
and he was struggling. The kids. I mean, can you imagine the kids coming home and their own father doesn't know who they are? You know? It's terrible. It's a terrible situation. And I remember what they were going through, what that family was going through, and tried to use
Related
some of that,
to it.
right?
Yeah.
For what was happening.
Because flashing back, just one thing I want to mention, that also I commend your acting, because I understand that the back of Josie during the rejection scene was not her, right? Is it her in that scene?
No, it's her. It's her.
Oh, it is her the whole time.
It's her.
Josie told me that it was that they used a double. Must have been another scene that she was in the film. It was her. Okay, because I thought if you were facing somebody else and doing that acting job, that was even harder. But it was.
I'm pretty sure it's her.
Yeah.
Now I can't remember now.
No, it's now this movie is what? How many years on? No, we're talking about it now. It's 2001.
We filmed it in 1999. Right.
Yeah.
2.5 years ago.
And it was really interesting. I mean, now it can be told,
right.
because we'd just come off Gen X, which everybody was like, yeah, this is our first big breakthrough movie.
Right.
And Purple Storm was like the dark side of the Force.
Yeah.
And the word back from the set and everything, the whole vibe was that, this was a troubled production, at least in the front office, which is where I was working. I mean, I was on the set a lot of the time on Gen X, but, only a couple of times on Purple Storm. And... geez, what are we going to end up with? And really ended up with for me, what was the most emotionally, visually, artistically satisfying film. So you just never can tell.
No, I think
you just never know.
Yeah, because Gen X is this kind of very light, action movie, but it didn't have this serious side to it, which Purple Storm had, and everyone was, worried about this film because it was so dark and so. Non-commercial, but yet we had this huge commercial budget.
Yes.
Right? And so
no stars.
Yeah,
forgive me.
Right, and
no stars.
Everyone was worried about it, and it turns out I think it's one of the best films that Media Asia produced.
This is a great moment for you. This was in one of the very early trailers, and I remember everybody going, "This is going to be something." And this, the folk song that they're singing is a real Cambodian folk song.
Yeah, this is one of the good things where you have the music before the movie's done, and Peter Camp. I mean,
this, of course, this traditional song was actually the theme for our very early. I mean, elsewhere on the disc, you guys will be able to see the teaser.
Right.
But that's what really made everything for suddenly the hair.
Yeah, well, it added this whole flavor. To the thing in the trailer. Yeah, it was amazing.
And it's again, a shame that there's not a soundtrack CD. They only tend to do that in Hong Kong when you have a pop idol doing a movie.
Right.
And of course, just to mention that the terrorists are the stunt team, pretty much.
Yeah.
Quite a few of the terrorists are the stunt guys, which is a common practice in. I guess it happens in the West. It certainly happens a lot in Hong Kong. I see. They save time by having the heavies be.
I love this part here where Josie starts banging the Uzi, and she has this look on her face. She's desperately like. Yeah. Will he remember this song? Will he remember this? Will this bring him back? This moment of realization, which is this is the first time development where you see Todd as a child and his relationship with his adopted father.
And I think even within the context of a film, the idea of your childhood memories being that is horrific. But the fact of the matter is, as you were saying, people. We all know people where it's. That's it. That's that is their childhood memory, and it's terrifying to think.
Right.
Kwok-leung's physical look in the movie, I don't know whether you know this or not, was it something that he came up with and designed?
Yeah, well, in the beginning, they came up with different ideas of how to do it, and then he started doing stuff on his own. He started shooting his own pictures and bringing them in and saying, what about this, what about this? And a lot of things, the white hair, the eye color, the look of his skin.
Yeah.
I think we all had to go to tanning salon to get darker for the role.
I remember seeing you at the time, and you know, like before you got the head shave, and you know, you seemed thinner in this movie as well. Was that something that you'd worked to lose weight, or it was just happened by the stress of doing the film?
I wanted to try and get like a lot more slimmed down and cutter because these kind of people are not like, you know, they don't live an extravagant life,
right?
You know, so I wanted to have that kind of like hard edge look.
Yeah,
and you know. Kwok-leung did it as well. He cut down a lot.
This sequence I really like because it's like your character obviously for the first time in this experience hearing the rationale behind like the Dark Fathers, the reason that he is the way he is.
Right.
And I thought he's playing it because I mean, you know, every society in the world, whether it's Spain with the Basque separatists, or in Canada with the Quebecois, or in Ireland, of course, where I'm from, in the UK, we have the Northern Ireland, and you always have this guy, this archetypal person, who has a history of this terrible beauty, and is driven by that to do anything, justified by history.
And you see his passion, and you can see why people will follow someone
and
like that. It's like Chairman Mao,
right.
or it's like Hitler, or whatever. You know, these people... They have this passion, this dream, this fire, and it's like, if you don't know anything else, man, that's the greatest thing in the world. You see someone that believes.
There's a universality to that, which is why I think this film struck a chord.
Right.
And
he's like holding my head here. It's like you feel part of him. You want to be part of his world.
Right. And here's the butterfly again. It's just the other film I can remember with the butterfly motif was All Quiet on the Western Front, which I rather way back when. And here they're bringing in like the heavy mob, right? These guys are like SDU, the Hong Kong equivalent of the SWAT team.
This is where they decide they're going to take us out.
Well, the Variety review of this film, which was written by a man I like and respect called Derek Elley, observed that the film was like one major action scene too long. And this is the only one I can think of that maybe they could think about cutting. But I mean, how? Because I mean, it was... How could you cut anything? It really moves the
This
plot.
action scene took many days to shoot. It was really difficult because it was blazing hot, and we had no place to really like hide out from the heat. And I remember the whole crew was just black after these few days.
They suffer.
Yeah, they totally suffer with these bad farmers' tans.
Yeah. Butters Brothers. I always love it when that comes up. It's just such an odd...
I never noticed that,
actually. The Butters Brothers of Glasgow. See that. But again, going for texture, I mean, this really is a real shipyard. Actually, we shot at night for this. It's the ending of Gen Y Cops. Is the next dock along. But you got those, you look like kind of, you got your Wu-Tang Clan anoraks on there. That's cool. And it's coming up in a while, but that object, what was that? What is the big thing covered with tires?
It's a big buoy. What they do is it's for those big, huge freight ships. It's like one of those, like on a speedboat, it's a little white plastic thing.
Right.
You know, I forgot what it's called, but anyway, it keeps it from smashing into the side of the dock.
Because, I mean, when you grew up, were you like a fan of comic books?
I read a lot.
Because there was the guy that really redefined comics for me was a guy called Jack Kirby, and he's the guy that invented Fantastic Four and all these things. And in his comic books, everything seemed to be larger than life. And that really looks like a Jack Kirby object. It had that kind of comic book.
Yeah, it's really surreal, that thing.
Yeah, it's really like something that's out of proportion with the rest of the environment, but in a good way.
Right.
I mean, it just again, it adds to the texture.
But it is. I was looking at it, it's like, that's totally out of proportion, but you see that thing in the background there. That's a ship.
Right.
You know, and it's like 400 feet long or something like that. It's crazy.
So what do they do? I mean, they just closed the dock down for you to shoot.
No, they were moving cargo
working.
and stuff in the background.
I guess they
just
used
have that one area.
Yeah.
I mean, look at this ship. It's huge. So you understand why that buoy thing is so big.
Now, the flashback here is actually Kowloon Tong. Where's it? That computer place? Is it a place where they sell computers there? I bought my computer in that building.
Oh, really? It's some kind of tech center. I really like this flashback scene, actually. Yeah.
And because in this scene, in the FBI, we have our favourite Western martial arts stuntman, Jude Poyer. He always gets a name check. And it's a different look for Cumberland there. I remember we were talking about the movie afterwards, coming up for that stunt sequence. We actually see it a bit later, is when you actually go over the middle of the rail in that building and you're hanging on a wire. We'll talk about that when we get there, when I was setting this one up. and it was. I remember Josie. She was very agile in this sequence because Josie's never really done action before, and obviously she's in the opening sequence.
Right.
But
She was very gung ho about doing the action. We were doing some stuff before the movie started. Like Dong-wai was preparing her for it. She was just completely gung ho. She's like, yeah, let's do it.
I've never known Josie actually be less than 100% about anything. I mean, she has two speeds, 0 or 60 miles an hour, and it's 0. I hope she was going to be here to talk with us today, but she's, the nerve of some people. She's working on a film, so
you gotta make a living,
You gotta the nerve of the girl. So we'll interview her. We'll have an interview with her elsewhere on the DVD.
But these scenes are great filming. It's just so much stuff going on. I think we're doing 2 crews at one time.
This was your first experience of this level of firepower, I would think.
It was intense.
Pretty hairy, I would think.
Yeah, I mean, because you're using real guns here. They're real guns that just fire blank bullets.
What always strikes me is that when you see movies and you see martial arts guys confronting gunmen, the times when I've been on the set and fake bullets are going off around you, the last thing you're going to be doing is triple sidekicking some guy with a gun.
Exactly.
It makes you realize quite how ridiculous all that business is.
Right.
I mean, you'd just be out of there.
Yeah.
I'm waiting for there's one shot. I mean, everybody's, the thing I like about this is that it's kind of like it's martial art movement, but with gunplay effect.
Right.
That people are not just standing and firing, that they're moving. And there's a shot coming up with Josie when she goes over the barrel, which I really liked. And I think it must be a little tricky because these have a bit of recoil on them, I guess.
Yeah, well, especially with that grenade launcher she had on the gun.
Yeah, but she goes over with a semi-automatic. She rolls over a barrel, and I mean there must be, I guess, some recoil from that when you're firing blank charges, right?
Right, a little bit. And the sound, it's loud.
Yeah, that was the thing that really freaked me when I was, and made me realize the shock value of that. Of being in a firefight is really underestimated. When you see movies and you see, I don't mean the actor, but the character, blasé to all of this, particularly someone who's never been in a gunfight before.
Right.
That people, I think movies should be more realistic.
No, yeah, I mean, if you've never fired a gun before and then you're in a situation like this, you probably won't be shooting. You're probably running away because it's seriously scary.
The only item of clothing you had in the whole damn film that I would actually like to take home was this the hooded thing. Did you get to keep that?
There's like 4 of them. You should have taken
cool.
one of them because we had
where was I when
doubles.
But I mean, actually, we have a warehouse in Kunton. We need to do an exhibition with all of the stuff's there. I went there, I saw all the bomb from Gen X and your bomb from Purple Storm. Right.
There's a funny story about that bomb.
Let's get there later, and we'll talk about the bomb. There's Anthony Carpio, good stunt man. I love the way she puts that grenade over there. Yeah, and it was like, there they are. There's a whole bunch of them. I've seen this film a bunch of times. I only noticed the one when it goes up in the air, but those boys. There you go. Over she goes and brrr, one take. Nice.
Right.
Go
nice.
Josie. There, this is it.
Boom.
This really
Here
is
comes
like
the buoy.
and let me tell you, if this was an American movie, that would be a CGI these days. They would not drop the real.
Yeah, it was kind of scary, that thing.
Yeah.
Coming down
real
like
deal. And but it's just such a great,
because we're under the boat, so we couldn't actually see it coming down.
Yeah.
We had to wait, at the right moment for it to land.
Yeah.
And then being up there on top of that.
How far up the ground were you?
It was like a good 50 feet up.
But still,
pretty scary.
People say only 50 feet, But when you get up there, it's like, hey, it's like even stand on a cupboard and look down, you don't want to jump. So.
Yeah, this is pretty rough.
And you're wide, obviously you're wide up, but still. Do you have a problem with heights? You cool with heights?
I'm scared of heights, actually, but,
you got do it. Speaking of scared of heights,
this was
here we go, the big moment.
Intense.
Whoa, there he blows. And here you had a wire, they actually CG'd the wire out, right?
Right.
That's 7 feet up.
There's a wire, and you're actually falling, so the wire gets a bit of tension when it jolts.
It's like
it's pretty scary. We had to do it like 4 or 5 times.
Yeah. And you just think, yep. That's nice because you can actually see it's you and you can see the height. Sometimes I look at movies. I mean, actually, there's a shot on Gen Y where we put the actor up 7 floors high. And you couldn't really see the background, the floor, so the ground. So there was no real point of reference. But there you could see you and you're up there. Here comes the boat. Tell us about this.
This is a terrible, terrible experience because we were running out of time and they hadn't really prepared this scene very well where I'm pulling him. And the first time they did it, they thought that I could actually hold Kwok-leung and hold Josie's hand and actually be pulled by the boat.
Yeah.
And I swear my shoulder almost ripped out of my socket, And we did it several times. And finally I said, look, just tie a rope through me. And they didn't want to do that because they're afraid I'd get pulled under the boat. I said, just do it because we couldn't do it. And we're wearing all these clothes, these heavy clothes, and the first time we fell off, Kwok-leung started sinking, you know.
Because of the weight of the water on the clothes.
And the boat had gone away. Yeah, his clothes were really heavy.
Yeah.
And I'm not a very good swimmer. And I was like, you know, trying to save myself and trying to save him at the same time, waiting for the boat to come back. And the whole crew was like 200 feet away.
Oh,
so they didn't know what was going on. And I was really scared. I was just like, man.
Can he swim?
Get back here. Yeah, he can swim, but the clothes were very
pulling him
heavy,
down anyway.
you know, and he was going under. And he actually said, help. And I tried to get over there as fast as I could, but I could barely help myself, you know.
Yeah. And you were telling me, was it pretty cold, right?
Yeah, it was cold.
And you were trying to speak Cantonese.
Right, and there's hundreds of jellyfish in the water,
Oh, yes. That's what you need. It just completely changed the subject. Nice tint on these shots here that they put on. Again, Arthur really, he really thinks with his eyes. You know, and there's a Jake catching the rope there. Very good stuntman. Josie's prime stuntman for the movie. In fact, actually, I found that a little disconcerting because they have very similar hair.
Yeah,
and he's Josie's prime stuntman.
Right.
And it's like, which is which? See, I thought it was his back in the love scene or the non-love scene.
No.
Josie told me it was. Well,
this scene here where I'm driving the boat, it was kind of a funny thing happened. Was I'd never driven a boat before. So when the first take, I crashed it into the wall of the pier right there.
Right. But it wasn't that. They had just one boat, right?
There's one boat, but it got slightly damaged, but it was okay. It's still usable. The lightning there was great effect that we filmed in the Philippines. Right. It was actually raining. We're on this runway. Yeah. And there was this great purple hue to the sky, and they decided, okay, let's try and catch this lightning on film.
Because I thought when I saw it, it actually was a stock shot.
No, we'd seen it, and Arthur just said, okay, let's set this camera up on the runway and shoot it, and we got this beautiful moment on film.
Great. Now, we talked, I remember when the movie was being shot or had finished, I mean, and I don't know how you want to address this, but about different interpretation of the character in certain scenes. So, how do you want to...
Well, yeah, there's, you know, everyone has a different interpretation of how to do a character, and Teddy wanted me to do it in a certain way that I thought might be a little over-exaggerated, or, you know, we talked about it for a long time. Finally, I just went for his way. But I think it could have been, like, those kind of scenes where he's, you know, freaking out. It could have been more subtle.
Well, I mean, again, it's the proof of the pudding. I mean, people, I'm not saying this because you're here, but I mean, you know, universally, even people who didn't like the film, because it got really diametric reactions. The majority of people liked it, and there were a couple of people who didn't like it in a big way. Right. But they singled out your performance, and so that obviously bore out, I guess, what Teddy's instincts were for the film. Right. Remember, when we saw it in London, the guy was there, I'm blanking on his name, he plays the Colin Salmons. Right. The Shakespearean actor who's in the Bond movies. Oh, right. And he seriously came to me. He said, I like the young guy who was the lead in that film. I want him to come and put him up for a season in Stratford. He was going to do some Shakespearean stuff. Great. So what year are you going to do that, Dan?
I don't know.
Dan Wu, Shakespearean actor.
Shakespeare in love.
Yeah, last time you shook a spear was you doing wushu, I guess.
Right.
But this scene with Joan and... It was like, it's really interesting seeing kind of Joan in this context now, because at the time she really was just doing these B movies in America, and this is kind of an equivalent to an American B movie that looks a damn sight better. Right. And now, of course, she went over and did Autumn in New York. Right. Which, you know, I saw that, and I thought that the problems that film had were not down to her as a director. I think actually she's actually a good director, and probably will go on to make better films than that one. And,
sure.
And she has some ability. There was this was where, this location?
This was in some really nice house near the prison. I forgot where it was. Yeah. But the family was home while we're filming the scene. We're doing screaming, got guns going on. There's like a mother and two kids.
Were they cool about it?
Yeah, they were downstairs. They came up every once in a while and just like, what is going on here? Yeah. You know, violence going on in their household.
movies coming into the real world.
No, this is one of the scenes where this is not really, I didn't really understand why why Teddy wanted to play it this way.
How would you have played it?
I didn't like this kind of insanity where the character is just like completely like not knowing whether to laugh or cry. I think it was a little more.
Yeah, it was.
It should have been more desperate than this, I think, because this is his last chance to sort of put his world into place. And although this is his fake girlfriend, is trying to struggle for something that is good in his life because he's seen the evil and he's seen the good, and he wants to go back to the good. And although she's not really his girlfriend, he's trying to ask her, please just help me. Yeah. Please just put me into a place where I can be in peace, you know.
I think he's trying to make that perfect world real by force of will.
Right.
And then has this
this is the point where he's really, he's really messed up inside.
Yeah. And I like the body language. You know, you have good... Sometimes you see actors just act with the face. And even the walk here, I really like that. The body language. And then this is really nice, the way this segues. You get the...
I like how it blends into the...
Yeah, exactly. Yes, nice shot.
This is tough filming this. Any rain scene is such a pain because they're just spraying this water, and it's heavier than any normal rain.
Yeah, right? Yeah. It's chubby rain.
And like this rain is like my underwear was wet, everything was wet, and you're just like trying to act at the same time. It's difficult.
So here we are. I believe this is out in the Hong Kong New Territories, recreating war-torn Cambodia.
Right.
It's interesting because this sequence has a really kind of a spare quality to it, like a Zen quality, because there's this whole execution ground being set up, but there's no one there apart from him to be the executioner.
Right.
So it has a kind of a dreamlike quality. I mean, maybe there were other people there, but in the child's memory, just the father. Right, just the father. But it's really all these insert shots.
That black crow, that was
very nice and very nice. Maybe not the right word, but very effective.
And this is where this is his initiation, Ta's initiation to that world.
Yeah.
And here, Todd realizing who he is for real.
Right.
No turning back.
And to me, the big reaction worked because of the fact that we'd had 45 minutes of the movie so far, whatever it was, to build up to that.
Yeah, right.
And that moment. How's Emil like, Chau again to work with?
He's great. Well, it's funny because he's just totally happy-go-lucky guy. Yeah. And he's always joking around, and he's got this great laugh, right? But then when he's in this character, it's totally a complete opposite of what he is. Yeah. But I bet this is like his character, when times are tough.
Right. I mean, people who are maybe not familiar with too many Hong Kong movies, you can see him. He's got this running gag character in the few Jackie Chan films, Run for the Bronx and Who Am I? He was a guy working in an ice cream van. And he also wrote the title track for Who Am I, which is one of the better things about that film. I really like that you got a bouncy.
Here's what the butterfly ties back in.
Right.
It's dead now,
Yeah.
His last chance of freedom is gone.
Right. Did you discuss the butterfly and all this?
Yeah, we did in the pre-production, and it was good. I was like, wow, we actually have
subtext.
Subtext in this film.
Having text is a first step in Hong Kong movie. Subtext is like, woohoo. And we talked about this as well. What's coming up here? This kind of Oedipal kind of thing, isn't it? The mutilation of the son by the dark father.
Prodigal son.
You can really, you could if you really. This is going to be the subject of film school study in years to come, and they're going to read and all this stuff, and you'll be like 50 years old lecturing in Harvard or somewhere about the subtext of Purple Storm. We're laughing now, but stranger things have happened. But this sequence here, a lot of people actually, the way it was shot and the way it was cut, didn't really appreciate what had happened on the first viewing. I don't know whether you had that experience, but people didn't really relate to it till later. There's a payoff later in the film when you see what happened.
Right.
And it was and Kwok-leung, he's one thing I like about his acting. He's a great listener.
Oh yeah.
Which is such an
important part of acting.
Such an underrated attribute. And like we were talking about before, often that kind of crying, screaming acting gets recognition.
Well, and the other thing, a lot of times in Hong Kong film, when you're doing your reaction, the other actor actually isn't there. And they have some assistant director just reading the lines very blithely, reading the lines to you. But every scene here, everybody was there for each part to give reactions back to the other actor, and I think that helps a lot.
Right. And that... You sliced the finger off.
Right.
But a lot of people didn't get it.
Well, you can't really see it right there. It's a little dark, right?
Yeah.
One little...
And as you said later, maybe you should have had some shot of you trying to, pick your nose or something.
No,
that would have let people know.
There should have been a little spot on that thumb right there, a little spotlight.
Yeah, but a minor thing. And then he's doing his big political rally speech with his few remaining men.
Right.
again, really nice
Well,
texture
this is
to the
like
shot.
the sort of rally before the final battle.
Big finale. And now, also people asked me what was happening here.
Shotgun bong.
Right. Okay. Well, you know.
Well, this is to
being
sort
the
of
clean living boy that I am, you know, I have
the,
no idea.
This is the effort of her to take the pain away from me. You know?
Right.
I don't know whatever substance that is in there.
Right. Nothing you could really enjoy.
But it puts me into this dream state where.
And then we get this, which I was really. I'm sure everybody feels, but I mean, as a father myself, I remember when I watched the movie, I found that whole.
It was really hard
different,
filming that scene
yeah.
because I actually felt something for that kid. Because you see,
he was a cute kid,
this child that has blood all over him and there's fire and everything, and it just puts you right into the moment.
Right.
And I was scared for him. As soon as we got cut, I just jumped up and brought him to this water hose to hose him off because I didn't want the kid himself to see all this
and be
stuff
traumatized by it.
Yeah, because he doesn't know what's real and what's not real.
Yeah. We'll get back to that in the moment. This is actually real footage. We actually way ahead of time because this film was actually shot, you know, well after the closure of the old Kai-Tak airport. But footage was actually shot of the airport during the transition, which is funny because there was no terrorists involved, but it was pretty chaotic anyway. It was we don't think there are any terrorists involved.
There was hundreds of people walking around.
It was just. I mean, when the new airport opened, they had a lot of problems. This scene is the heart of the film for me, and certainly the heart of the relationship. When, you know, he has to come to terms with who he was, in the most extreme sense of who he was.
Right, where he is so devout to the cause that he could sacrifice his own child.
Right, and
it's not until afterwards that he realizes how wrong that was.
Right. And it opens this window into the soul of Guang Ai, of the character played by Josie Ho.
Gunai.
But you know what also I think is kind of terrifying is the way that you've got these terribly sympathetic people, but during the course of the scene they actually kill some other people. I mean, your character as a passive observer, but her as an active person are actually killing people while... But rather than saying that lessens it, to me, that is what these people are like.
Right.
I think, in the real world.
Right.
And most revolutionaries are not psychotic or mad in the accepted sense. They just have a different value system based on their experience and their beliefs.
Right.
That's a wonderful reaction shot there. And Josie told me she felt very uncomfortable shooting this because the way they made her sit, that the laptop was on her knees.
Yeah, it was difficult because there's, separate locations.
But you don't really feel that. You just feel it. And it was
no, the way she delivers this line is so awesome because she's so cool. It's like... You chose me, I chose you, and you chose the party. Right.
And
that's the way it is.
Yeah. And I remember when we showed the film in a festival in Italy, and she was there as a guest.
Mm-hmm.
And there were these two German guys, and they were talking to her. And the thing I like Josie is when she, whatever her public image, in private, she's very committed and sincere about her work.
No, very.
And these two guys were there for like an hour at least, just talking to her about the part and about the film and whatever.
Uh-huh.
It's a shame in Hong Kong there's so few venues and so few opportunities to discuss filmmaking. Yeah. I think the films would actually benefit from that a great deal. No, but definitely. It doesn't happen. The only time you get asked about is your private life and this and stuff that really doesn't relate to the filmmaking process. People don't really want to know about. You know, like me, I mean, even because I know a lot of people, no one ever asked me about the work experience with so-and-so. They always ask me who's dating who and who's this, and the stuff that really has no relevance to the films we make.
Celebrity.
Yeah. That was. Are we talking about the film title Celebrity, the Woody Allen movie?
Well,
that was a good insight.
Like that, actually,
great insight into that world. Yeah. Well,
that's
that guy. The guy there with the crane is Tony Trimble. He's the kickboxing instructor at a gym in Hong Kong.
Oh, really?
Yeah. They got him in. You know, everybody in this film is something that other than what they seem on camera and off. Now, once the exteriors are actually at
the old airport,
right? At Kai-Tak.
But this is after it had been closed down.
Right.
It was kind of eerie being there because there's nobody. On the whole ground, and it's this huge airport.
Once we get inside, though, we're in the Philippines.
No, inside the airplane.
Inside the airport,
but inside the hangar.
Oh, the hangar.
Well, half the hangar is the real.
Why?
airport.
I guess because you couldn't shoot the new airport where the planes are kept now in Hong Kong. You couldn't shoot this there then.
They wouldn't let us shoot on an airplane. So we tried several locations, I think Thailand and China.
Yeah.
And eventually the quickest place to get access to a plane was in the Philippines, so we flew over there and did that.
Right.
So, this was in Hong Kong.
Yeah. And
I remember that scene there where Josie's saying there's an extra who's dead already, right?
Yeah.
And I guess he'd fallen asleep lying on the ground. So when they fired the gun, he actually woke up and then realized he's supposed to be dead and lied back down. Of course, that was an NG. We had to shoot it again.
Yeah.
But it was really funny.
Unfortunately, this isn't the kind of movie you have NG reels on.
No.
This was the shot. When we were showing the trailer to buyers, I would always say, just your average cheap-ass Hong Kong kung fu picture. That's when people realize what happened earlier.
Right.
It's a really neat idea. I don't know why we haven't seen that in another movie before, but this scene here...
No, it's important to have those things kind of tie in.
Yeah.
It makes things gel better.
Nice angle on that shot. But this whole thing, in the trailer, he looked like, wow, look at that. I mean, it's just that prop alone. There's a whole Wong Jing movie sitting right there.
Yeah, I don't even know how much that thing cost to make.
Phenomenal.
We had to ship that thing to Philippines, which the funny thing was shipping that to the Philippines and getting it X-rayed and people going, what is that thing in that box there?
You know what's funny is when we did Gen X Cops, remember the big blue bomb? That was the blue Gatorade.
Right.
And I always kid with people. I say, well, this was raspberry and 2000 AD was the lime. So we were working our way through the flavors. And this is
this is Philippines.
In Philippines, right? Yeah. So how long were you over there for the Philippines to shoot?
About a week.
Yeah. And that was it, really, just the airport stuff.
Yeah, and inside the airplane.
How about the embassy that's going to be blown up? Where was that?
The embassy where my son?
Yes.
Oh, that was also in the Philippines.
Right. Okay. So that was there. And even this stuff, I mean, it's just the detail of it.
Yeah.
I mean, there wasn't any level of the film.
They had this tech guy on the set doing this stuff. It was amazing. This kid.
Really?
He was pumping out these graphics.
How old was he?
I don't know, he was like 22, 23.
That's the new breed.
Yep.
That's it.
Yep.
And did we get another shot of him with Jupiter, our famous stills guy? He was in the background of that shot just now.
That's his English name, Jupiter?
That's
really?
The name he goes by. Just that name and that name alone. He was very sincere about that.
Wow.
This line I like as well when she says, if I had lost my memory, I would never have come back. Yeah.
Basically, she's questioning why.
Yeah.
Why are you here? Let's get out.
And this part of the film is always, I always find in movies, is like the leading up to whatever the big finale is going to be. And you still have information to get across, but you need to keep the pace going. And I think this film does that very well, because a lot of the times, even particularly Hollywood movies, there's a big sag, okay, we're waiting for the ending,
Right.
You got to type all these plot points.
No, the pacing is tied in very good.
I mean, Teddy had it in for the ATF because all of these guys. I think Patrick's the only one that lives to be in Purple Storm 2. Somebody, the funny thing is, there was a movie came out called White Storm, and the internet they were saying it was Purple Storm 2, and I was like, how the hell could you have Purple Storm 2? It was like, but people really thought that.
Well, interestingly enough, I did this other movie, totally not related to this at all, but the pirated copy that came out in China said it was Purple Storm 2.
Yeah. I suppose if you have a film that is really successful and commercially, and you want to do a sequel, you can squeeze a way to do a sequel. I was just, as an exercise, toying with it. Like, it would have to do with the underground city that you saw in the schematic. That's where it would have to be set. I guess they're doing that now. It's Tomb Raider.
All this was filmed in the Philippines. The Philippine crew was great because every time you did a shot and you did it in one take without having to do it again, they would all clap.
Oh, that's a change.
Like this scene right here where I caught Josie, they just did one take and they were clapping and stuff like that. You feel a little more
listen,
proud.
if you saw some Filipino action films, you know why they were clapping. And there's that chick. And again, I mean, I don't know about you, but I look at him with the same hair as Josie, and if you didn't know, I mean, the bone structure is similar. He's a great double for her.
Yeah, right.
She should do a full-on martial arts picture, and just take him on as her double, or just for double, and then she's up and running. And it's nice, you really get the sense of the reality of the place. In fact, I'm thinking, is there anywhere in this movie you're in a studio? I think not.
No.
The whole movie was...
Except for the green screen stuff.
Yeah. But
No, it was
everything
all
else
on
is
locations.
just on location.
They're pretty amazing. I mean, even a Hollywood movie can't do that.
No,
You can't at all.
and it lends itself to it adds such texture. I mean, you always hear people say about films shot in New York that New York becomes an extra character in the film, and I really think Hong Kong is a character in this film, very much.
Oh, definitely, definitely.
Yeah, is the only English. I think there's about 8 lines of English in this film, and that was just one of them. And I remember the premiere. Jackie was crying in this scene. Jackie Chen, producer. He's it's interesting the kind of the dynamics of his character, because he's very easily touched by stuff.
Oh, yeah,
and I think that's probably what
he's an emotional guy.
Right, but I think that's what
all that
audiences.
chopsocky action.
Yeah,
He's an emotional
but I
guy.
think that's what made him work when he was doing. That's what makes the audience care about him. You know, when he's doing martial arts pictures, because God knows most of the American martial arts actors don't have that. You know.
This scene, Josie just did an incredible job. And when we're doing it, I'm like, okay, I'm just going to give this all to Josie, let her do it. It's important for her.
And I remember even when we were dubbing the English version, because it's, as you know yourself, having dubbed a couple of movies now into English, as opposed films that were shot in Chinese, it's very hard. Hard enough to recreate the emotion anyway if you're saying the same lines you said on the set. But if you're dubbing and watching the lip movement, and she really nailed it and impressed me. And again, one of these people who I really think Josie's got so much potential, more than the industry's allowed her so far. So I hope Hong Kong can find better vehicles for people, because otherwise they have to go abroad to do films. It's a shame. So this is the moment really where we set in motion what I'm saying, like the final act.
Final act, yeah.
And really they play fast and loose with time here a little bit in stuff that you get to do. I mean, I always look at it, did he really have time to... You know, it's like you're given the time to do that.
That was harder than it looks, jumping out of the back of that airplane.
Right.
Because there's no pads or anything, jump straight to the ground and then beat up that guy and run.
Yeah. There's a couple
I was pretty scared of doing that.
Really?
Yeah.
And that's in the Philippines. That was
yeah.
Were you hurt at all doing the film?
Just a couple bumps and bruises, nothing really major. I was surprised.
And here we are actually in the old
airport,
Hactl area at the old airport, the cargo area. Boom. Imagine what it would cost to build this. I remember I was there when you jumped down from there.
Yeah, right.
But you didn't really see... did you land on pads on that
No,
one?
they didn't get the ground in.
They didn't get the ground in, did they? It's a shame. It's all right. It still looks good. But I know there's a
this
scene.
Stuff, the timing is really great.
This is good. But I mean, there was a scene coming up which I remember, you know, we talked about. This is coming up now with Kwok-leung. So we'll talk about it when we get there.
There's Dong Wai right there. That's him.
Oh, is that Dong Wai in the back? Is that him?
He
wow, little cameo, huh?
Well, I forgot what had happened, but he had done something that he was sorry to Kwok-leung. So I said, okay, I'm going to make a part where you can kill me.
You know, Dong Wai in his day was a pretty neat martial arts action actor.
No, he's excellent. I mean, he was demonstrating all the stunts for us himself. He was
still
all right on. Yeah, no problem. There you go, drop the bomb.
Yeah. When in doubt, drop the bomb. But he was how soon did you be aware that he was the kid from Enter the Dragon? You don't think...
I think you told me that.
Yeah, I mean, because, you know, I guess...
And there's a still from the movie Enter the Dragon where you see him and Bruce, right? And it's very clear who it is.
Facially, he's still very similar. Gong. Now this confrontation. Is it here that you say that line? I think it's in this scene. I just don't want to kill anymore.
Yeah.
Yeah.
No.
There's
not
later.
the scene. No,
Later.
in the
it's
tunnel.
just he doesn't. I remember there was.
Here's his last chance ever trying to pull him back in.
There's a play about people fighting Adolf Hitler in South America, and they're transporting him from one side to the other to take him back to Germany. And they said, whatever you do, never let him say anything, because if he speaks, he'll bend you to his will.
Right.
Because all of these guys must be great orators.
Right. Of course. I mean, this is one of the main points. These great leaders, right? They can brainwash people.
Right.
And at this point, I realized that.
Yeah.
Like,
so you're saying...
Don't say anything more anymore because I already know. I know what I want to do.
Yeah. And it's actually, this sequence is the only segment of the film where your character is proactive rather than reactive.
Right.
When he's finally taking action and actually is the hero of the film. Right. Actually, the character isn't an anti-hero for most of the movie.
Right.
That shot there, I know you had...
Disappears and reappears.
Yeah, it actually got a couple of laughs when people saw it. But, you know, I understand that when they were doing it, that was work. Now, this shot here, people can be awfully, you know... Nobody knew that was
that's a
composite. Nobody knew.
CG there. And in fact, when I was watching the premiere, I'd forgotten.
Yeah.
And I was like, wait a second.
Where was
the airport was closed down.
Yeah, where was the plane? And you know what's funny?
Really
People get so, you know, you say, yeah, that was CG. Oh, yeah, I knew.
That. And all this stuff moving in the background, too.
And people say, oh, I knew that was a CG shot. I'm like, no, you didn't. We just told you. But I guess now it's
there I got a little hurt on that scene.
Sliding down there?
Yeah.
It's weird, isn't it? Because that doesn't really look like anything.
Yeah, it's those ones, it's those small stunts which you don't think are anything that are the most dangerous.
And I know that the next location that we see you in here was actually your favorite location of the whole movie. Sweet smelling and scenic.
The sewers of Hong Kong.
I remember I saw you said, Bey, why don't you come visit on this set?
Right. 5 days in the sewer.
Yeah.
Completely wet from head to toe.
It's a real deal sewer, right?
Right.
God.
No trailer, nothing.
It's great, isn't it? The romantic world.
In between shots, I was just standing in there.
Boy, I wish I was a movie star. Yeah, to go to work in a sewer every day.
Well, at one point it started raining and the water went up like waist high.
Yummy.
I had to stop filming.
Stuff was floating by. And this sequence.
I really actually like this scene.
Moves. Well, when I saw it, when we were watching, it's on the Steenbeck, and I had a tear in my eye. It just worked so well. And it didn't have the effects at that time. But it is just really, it's moving, and people aren't really sure why, but they're moved by it. This question of this perfect world,
this bit right here.
This is just such it's a wonderful, and the music, and the kid was perfect.
Even now, I'm watching it right now, I've got the tingles.
Yeah, I know. It's just it really is beautiful. And I had to pretend to be sneezing when I was crying when watching this on the Steenbeck. Because you put yourself in the character, and it was like you and me, and that was my son, and it was just really like, how do you get yourself to that place? I don't mean acting-wise. You did do that acting-wise, but the real person. Right. How do you get to that place? Right. You know? And how do you live on afterwards?
Right.
God.
How do you live with yourself?
Yeah, yeah. And this is really a movie that raises these very, very serious questions and issues. And I think that's why it struck a chord overseas more. Because, and again, I'll probably get in trouble for saying this, but I don't know whether Hong Kong people really do spend much time.
This is a scene where Gum-san was doing the action, and that scene right there, actually, he forgot to put his hand down and smashed his head right into the concrete, and it made this sound that was just incredibly sickening. Oh. And I just was like, no, let's get somebody to double in for him.
And you got a veteran of the Jackie Chan stunt team. What's that guy's name? He looks like Kwok-leung. He's a very good double.
He did his hair up and everything. Just like.
And there's a line where you say, I just don't want to kill anymore. And that's just, sums up the character's journey. But it made for a nice little shot in the making of, I have to say.
And this is where he feels the emotional breakdown. Yeah. There's no way that Todd is coming back.
Yeah. So he severs
the dream is over.
Yeah.
And however sick and twisted it was, it's over.
And the audience is going. It's funny because the audience know why you don't shoot him, because I think that they've been on the journey and they understand the relationship's more complicated. But again, it's really, I really admired Dong Wai's way of bending his choreography to suit the character and circumstance. Yeah. Because a lot of Hong Kong movies, the main director leaves, the action director comes on, and it's a different the wrong kind of fight. Right. Whereas with, I look at Teddy and Dong Wai when they're working together as, two halves of a whole. It's a terrific team. Moses taking a shot.
Gum-san did that shot himself.
Right.
Falling down the water.
Yeah. And leading up now to this is the other major effects shot. I mean, there's three really. I mean, there's the physical effect, which was the blowing up of the building, the scene in the green screen, which the green screen shot where you're running through the fields. That was in a studio against green screen, right? And this was the other major shot. It actually was storyboarded slightly differently, but it still works really well. The kind of the dying vision of this character, and
Here comes
he's
the
actual,
storm.
Yeah, his. You know what's funny? There's another movie called Project S, a Michelle Yeoh movie that Emil's in, and he's got exactly this scene at the end, running away from poisoned and sliding under a big door. I mean, you know, how many times are you going to reinvent the wheel? His physical deterioration actually was more pronounced in the storyboards, and I think they thought it was going to be too much like a horror movie.
Yeah, I mean, it had to be a little more subtle in terms of how he's going to transform.
Right.
Because you didn't want to take away from the drama of actually what was happening by these special effects.
Yeah. And I mean, as soon as you
I think what was more important about the scene is his dream of what he's seeing here. This purple rain coming down is maybe not what is really happening, but that's what he's seeing.
Yeah.
And the realization of his dream.
Right. This is his last moment. And then this... we really see the effect of the poison.
It's funny filming these kind of shots because he's just lying there and there's nothing going on. Right.
And then later you see the film.
Yeah, and you're like, wow,
what
there's a bunch of stuff going on here.
And this is all effect stuff. This sequence here.
The veins.
And of course, we don't have this kind of technology in Hong Kong, so it all has to go back to the States. Yeah. So you really have to take like a wait-and-see approach to see what comes back. But I thought this would work very well in the context of the scene in that moment. And then, run for your lives, boys. And of course, you guys use running, right? And then this, you know, here come the special effects. These are actually underneath the airport, these tunnels?
No. These are on new territories.
Oh, okay.
Underneath the new housing.
See, you fooled me. I'm like, maybe they are. And this is for real, this big gate.
No, they built this.
Oh, okay. It looks real. Good. And this is, just in time. Boom. Into the man in the white coats. And I really like the way that they, again, this in camera language, the way that your character is dealt with in this next little sequence. You know, it's really nice. It was like, and then we're back at the airport now, right?
No, this is still there. This is still at that same place.
Still there, right. And I don't think there cannot be many screen characters who've been put through the mill. I think Midnight Express, Billy Hayes in Midnight Express, and Dordak in Purple Storm get the kind of abused central character awards.
Right. I got the hell beat out of me.
20th century cinema.
Got no finger. I can't remember who I am.
That's right.
Got shot.
Yes. You went out with Ollie Reed.
Right.
Quick shot there of all the dignitaries at the actual airport closing, shutting down the last flight taking off from Kai Tak, our old airport. And then at the very end of the movie, we see the new one.
This is great cinematography here.
Yeah. And, again, it's like it's telling a story with the camera. And that's kind of like the challenge. Because a lot of the time you get talking heads movies, and this movie I think is great because so much of it's told visually. So you think he's your character just slips away, or does he want him to go? At that moment,
I think how does he get away? And Emil is not too worried about him.
Because it's so cleverly done, you never really question it. You're like, where or how?
Well, because everyone understands.
Yeah.
He's got to go. He needs to leave.
And he's earned his.
Because they used him.
He's been redeemed. He's been
redeemed
by this, and this is really nice. And again, the kind of touch I don't know if you see it in too many action films.
Right, where it ties it back into the whole reason why everything happened.
What was our budget on this Pull at the Post? It was about $4 million US. You show me a $4 million US movie with this kind of scale and texture to it. I mean, they look like they were shot in someone's living room. Right. $4 million American movie nowadays. Here we are at the new airport. Probably there had been people there before, but now one thing I always wonder, I can ask you now, how long had happened between those events at the airport and now? And where has he been in the meantime? I always wondered this. Because there's a time for a book to be published.
And over a year,
Yeah, so he's been lying low where?
In the gutters of Hong Kong.
Must be, yeah. And somehow, I guess, and they haven't seen each other in the meantime, and somehow...
Emil finds him.
But
he's changed. You can tell he's different.
Yeah.
Because I think throughout the whole movie he was this kind of young
Yeah.
this boy basically,
Right.
not knowing what's going on, and
Yeah.
now he's this man.
Yeah.
And when
Still.
Emil approaches him, he's just he's not scared, but he's more like,
Nice recognition. And you're kind of are you paler in that shot? In this was
what's that?
you look more pale. You're not as tanned as earlier in the
No, I
film.
think it's the lighting thing.
Really? So you just
Yeah, because
Yeah.
we'd filmed this earlier.
right. Because if you'd been lying low in the gutters of Hong Kong, I guess you would have been more pale. And nice.
But
and
now
shooty.
you see
Yeah.
Todd has changed. He's different now.
Right.
And
Where does he go?
He
To?
starts
What does he
in
go
the-
and do? Do you think?
Dream World. He
You-
goes,
Did you ever think about where he
goes
was
to start
going?
again.
He goes. Where do
We
you think
questioned it. We questioned that question, but it was more of about let's keep it up in the air.
Yeah.
Let's keep it up in the air, and it's that
I
he's
see.
the butterfly is alive. You know,
Right. He's free to fly.
freedom.
If you were him, where would you have gone?
Some paradise somewhere. Retire.
Yeah. The way you're feeling now, right? It's probably you're going to go to France. I know
Sure.
you've been doing films back to back.
Sure.
Yeah, the greatest. Willie Chan, Thomas Jung. I mean,
Chen, my
your
agent.
chance to give some face here, because I mean, these
Right.
guys were the guys that placed their bets on you to do this
No,
movie.
yeah.
Against, I mean, I'll be honest with you, Dan. There was people naysayers behind the scenes,
Yeah, I mean,
people
there's a
with
lot-
their
there
own
was a lot of-
questions. You know.
Right, there's a lot of pressure, and then you as an actor, you got to just say, look,
Yeah.
I'm here to do my job, and I'm not going to worry about this kind of
Right.
BS that happens in the background.
You were aware of it though going in.
Sure, of course.
Yeah.
I mean, but it's not really my responsibility. Once I was chosen, it's like, this
Yeah.
is my job. I got to do my best.
Do you, when you look back on this movie, is it your most satisfying film experience to date? Or?
Yeah, it has to be one of the top one or two, because this is the first film where I've worked on it where the script was there, the budget was there, the production value was there, everything was there. Plus, we had this great few producers who really put a lot of faith in me, and a great cast, and all these people that just really love the project. And it's very rare that you get that situation where everyone kind of gels.
Did you get a chance to see it with like your family and friends of from your earlier life?
No, I think some of my friends have gotten hold of the DVD.
Yeah.
And have seen it, and just
Sure.
were very, very impressed.
Right. I mean, and the thing is, I mean, being an actor, you can only really you're dependent on so many other aspects.
Right.
Like good script, good production values. But I mean, this film really did deliver all of those. We were watching it actually on a plane, going to Japan. Thomas Jung, the producer, and Peter Poo, my colleague, and I was playing on a flight. And as I say, I mean, in terms of box office, it did okay, but it wasn't smash hit. And I said to them, I don't care if this film would have lost money. It was worth making.
Yeah,
Because it was the old proverb, it was a good movie.
Yeah,
And
I think
you-
it's the important thing is that you have to make the effort.
See,
you have
look,
to try.
Jupiter won.
All right, you have to make the effort and just take the step.
Right.
And do it, and
Yeah.
don't be scared about is it going to make money or this and that?
Exactly.
Because
you
right
don't know.
now-
No one knows.
Right.
You know.
And now I think it's making itself back.
Now, see that? Now, there's an important name. Look, see that guy?
Bey Logan,
there.
there you are.
What?
English
I mean,
subtitles.
come on. Let me tell you, if you think these ones were bad, and it's tough, particularly the Cambodian folk song. And there we are. Daniel, thank you.
Yeah. Thank you. Thanks for listening.
See you from
everybody.
Purple Storm 2.
Right.
Or Gen Z. Gen Z cops. Not with me. We're out.
Keep watching Hong Kong movies.
Who the heck were Fun and Snow? You see those people at the end and you wonder, did somebody get like a free ski trip out of this film? Fun and Snow. Cathay, all right, I'll give them that. And the bookstore at the end. Gold's Gym, was that where you were training?
No.
Okay. Thank you and good night.
See ya.
Jai Geen. And please note this, okay? No pirating this damn DVD. We put a lot of time and money into it.